So, hemlock or cow parsley? The answer is going to be revealed. What you see here is the original photo for the quiz, and what I suggest is that you actually pause this video and take some time to see if you can tell the difference if you're new to this game, this quiz that we're doing. Now, it's quite a serious quiz because your life depends on it, so to speak. So I'm going to reveal the answer shortly, but along with numerous photos and illustrations of both hemlock and cow parsley. But first I want to make things very clear to people, and also about my own way of teaching the edible weeds that surround us. Firstly, for me, foraging is not about being afraid of nature or the plant kingdom, but it is about being respectful. That being said, the old forager adage of when in doubt, leave it out, it's not just some pretty statement. It is a fundamental rule, and it will save you from coming to harm and maybe even death. You see, many people fear the wild, yet it's not the wild that is at fault, but ourselves. So, plant identification using the internet or books can be a very rocky path. We live in an information culture, and as a result, because we all have egos, often information is spread around that is incorrect. Unfortunately, sometimes people just want to prove how clever they are, and in their rush to be right, often can trip up and take you down the rabbit hole of false information. Using the internet for plant identification is only just the start of your own journey, okay? I want to be very clear on that. It is not the be-all and end-all. When you think you've identified a plant yourself from various photos on the internet, and remember, even if you use something like Google Images, oftentimes those plant images have been tagged incorrectly. They're not not even the right plant. Or someone's identified a plant for you in maybe a Facebook group or an online group somewhere or some discussion forum. Do not take it at first hand. Go and get a wildflower identification book and head on out actually into nature and go and find that plant. You see, botany can only take us so far. For pattern identification, which is obviously your first port of call and is what wildflower ID books are, it is invaluable. I'm not dissing botany per se, but then other identification factors come into play that are as equally important and quite simply cannot be learned from books or the internet. Because we've been foragers for tens of thousands of years, way before Linnaeus came up with his classification system, or botany, or science, or even foraging as a word was invented, we had other ways of knowing the world. Those ways are how indigenous cultures got to know plants. But one of the key ways these cultures learned plants was orally, from the older members of the band or tribe. In our culture, that would have been, say, the same as being an apprentice to someone who knew their subject deeply, who could guide the newcomer. The ancient Romans and Greeks said there are 3 ways to learn a subject. The first way is by personal experience, but it is the most dangerous way, especially when learning plants. The second way, the best way, was the middle way, and that was to have a guide or a mentor to teach you. And the third way, the poorest way, was via books and information. You see, our modern world gives high praise to the information way, and as is pretty self-evident, we move from an industrial culture where we had apprenticeships to an information culture only very recently. So when it comes to learning plants, there is no better way than to learn directly from someone else. Learning plants via books and the internet can only take you so far. Then you have to get off your screens, folks, and you need to step out into the natural world, and it's not as scary as you think. Okay, this video covers hemlock and cow parsley, which are both members of the Apiaceae family, which was formerly known as the Umbellifera family, or, in common words, the carrot and celery family. Now, I want to make something very clear. This is not a plant family for beginners, and some people who've commented have said that it is best left alone until you gain more experience, which I totally agree with. But that experience will come with time as you slowly progress along your own plant journey. Plants vary in how they appear, not only in the different locations around the country, as someone commented, but also in the illustrated and photo wildflower books. So, in order to start the plant identification journey, you need to learn pattern identification. And this is why getting your head around a proper wildflower key rather than a photo or illustration book is the better way. And one flower key that I highly recommend is by Francis Rose and simply called the wildflower key. The problem with botanical ID is that it gives us only a piece of the puzzle when learning a plant. And one of the quickest and most effective ways to differentiate between hemlock and cow parsley is by smell. Smell's vital, and I personally believe that every single plant has a unique smell. Now, this belief does not come from some hippy-trippy woo-woo understanding of the world, but from my own experience travelling overseas and meeting indigenous plant walkers. In our modern techno-civilization, we often exist in our heads, cutting ourselves off from our senses and our body. And as I say on all my plant walks, in order to be an effective forager or plant walker, you need to get out of your head and come to your senses. And the easiest way to do this is to pick, crush, and sniff a plant every day. Doing so wakes up your senses. It's also known as organoleptic learning, using all of our senses, not just our eyes, and it's an extremely powerful way to learn plants. But organoleptic learning, or as I call it, sensory attention, has other far deeper outcomes, something I just don't have time to go into in this video. So the purpose of doing this video was to show people just how easy it is to not know a plant, simply by using your eyes and a screen and picture books. And that to fully meet a plant, we need to spend time with that plant in its habitat and in context as to where it grows and the relationship that it has with the rest of creation. I hope you start moving away from gaining plant knowledge via your head and the books and start spending more and more time outside meeting plants, sitting with plants and observing them through their growth cycle and the various seasons. It's an empowering, enlivening journey walking the green path, as my beloved plant mentor Frank Cook called it, but you have to do it. You have to get off the touchline of life, get off your screens and out of the computer and enter the wild. That all being said, I'm now going to take you through some photos that show the differences of hemlock versus cow parsley. But like I said, you will not truly know each plant until you meet it in the wild. So, like I said, the plant on the left here is hemlock and the plant on the right is cow parsley. Now, these are the stems, the same picture but with the stems side by side. As you can see on the left, the hemlock has red blotching, and we'll get into kind of close-ups of this shortly. The stem on the right has deep ridging or ribbing. Now, stem on the left has very, very subtle ribbing, but as you can see, they're pretty pronounced just by looking at that photo from far away. One of the things that with foraging is that you must never, ever, ever, ever put a plant in your mouth you cannot identify with 150% certainty. And when it comes to the carrot family, you need 500% certainty. Your instinct to know that plant needs to be the same as if you're in a shop and out of the corner of your eye you kind of caught milk and you just hand reaches out milk. There is no thinking, there is no question, oh, is that milk? No, you know, in an embodied way, you know that is milk. You've had it right through your life. It's second nature. As soon as you have to stop and question, then you need to pay attention to that. Many people, those thoughts will come up and they'll still act, they'll still pick, they'll still nibble. Problem. With hemlock, you can die. You don't want to go and be paralyzed from your toes upwards until it takes out your heart. And with hemlock, when you die, you're going to die with a clear head. Yeah, you're not going to be tripping like fantastic or going off into la la land. Yeah? Pay attention. Be aware. Here's the stem again of hemlock with the blood splattering, the blotching. Here's cow parsley with the ribbing underneath. More of the stem. Now this is the center stem where the flowers start coming out. Then we have the leaf stalks coming through. So on the left here, if you do a cross section of this stem, what we have is hemlock. And on the right, we have cow parsley. Now, if you look at the hemlock, you'll see little dots, circles around the inner bit. If you look at the right, they aren't pronounced, they're not there. What you have is a far smaller hole in the middle, not quite as hollow as the hemlock. Here's the leaf stalk. On the left, we have the hemlock, and on the right, we have cow parsley, and as you can see, it's triangular when you cross-section it. This is cow parsley. This is hemlock. Cow parsley, hemlock. These are the two stems side by side. Hemlock has the blotching, cow parsley doesn't. Now some cow parsley, as you'll see a bit later on in photos, actually has a purpley staining throughout, but it's not a blotching, it's a staining. It's like a wash going over as if you're painting. Rather than splatting paint onto a canvas, the wash is as if you dragged your brush across the paper. So let's look at hemlock in more detail and in various locations. But like I say, the ultimate test is for you to go out with someone. Do not try this family unless you are 500% certain. I cannot bang on enough about that. Here's hemlock. And more pictures of it. This is pretty pronounced. Often the hemlocks are not this pronounced. Sometimes they just have mild blotching along the stem. These are the leaves of hemlock, and as you can see if you look in there, they're slightly ribbed, they're smooth, no hairs. Hemlock again. And you can pause these videos obviously at whatever point you want. So, cow parsley. Here's the leaf. Grooving. Rather than being round with the mild ribbing, they have grooves down the stems, which we'll get to. As you can see, there it is. I call it a guttering. It's like a V. Put a water drop in that, it would fall down. It would roll down in between that groove. More cow parsley. In situ. And as you can see, when I mentioned the staining, the purple staining, it's very different to the hemlock that we saw. This is a staining, a streaming up through the plant rather than flicking an ink pen at it. Get your flower ID books out, your plant ID books out, and pay attention to the detail. Using the eye to learn plants is a beautiful way to take in the mystery and the awe and the wonderment that plants reveal to us by us simply paying attention. You know, we live in this somnambulist culture where we're just tick-tocking through it. Sleepwalkers, myself included. Anything I say, I do not exclude myself. It's not like I've somehow popped into some new reality of being able to see the world. But I find it beautiful. But it is only the start. And you know, that beauty that you see in front of you, you can't get its total picture, its total signal, until you actually meet it in the wild. Here's a cow parsley stem. As you can see, the purple and the red is really throughout. That's not blotching there. More cow parsley. Again, you can get these green stems of cow parsley, and then other variants have the purple throughout them. They both taste very different. The green tastes very different to the purple, but you have to know them. 500% certainty, folks. So I hope this is giving you some feel. It was a bit fun to do the quiz. It was also like, ooh, that's a bit edgy, you know, shouldn't really be doing that. But I wanted to make the point about how the internet can mislead. All right? And you need to go and validate everything, whatever. Even if you go with a foraging teacher, you need to validate it for yourself. This way we become fully empowered, fully embodied, and as awake as possible. Okay. That's it. Enjoy your plant journey, people.